Hi everyone. So in the last video I showed you how you could create a ScanNCut cutting file from a stitched applique file directly on the ScanNCut machine. In this video I'm going to show you how you can create a PHC file from a stitch file, which will then open in your ScanNCut machine, and you can create an applique cutting file again with it, but in a slightly different way. I actually saw this, I think this was on the Brother website, but I'm using a Brother Innovis V5LE. At the time of recording this, it's February 2021. And the process is slightly different than what I saw, so I just thought I'd share it with you. As far as I'm aware, in the UK, the only two machines that can read PES or PHC file formats are the ScanNCut 2200 Disney, which is the machine I have, or the ScanNCut SDX 1200. I think the CM900 can read PES files, PES files. So if that's the case, you would be able to follow the video I made last week. I'm not so sure from what I can see that they will work with this technique. So that's just to let you know. So I'm at my machine, I've got a USB stick plugged in the side of my machine, and I've got a couple of applique stitched files. Now I have to stress they do have to be applique stitch files, not just regular embroidery stitch files. I'm going to come into embroidery edit. I'm going to choose a design from my USB stick, and I'm going to choose the scribble clover design that I showed last week, so you can see when we go over to the ScanNCut how these two compare. So this is just a PES applique stitch file at this moment in time. I'm going to say set, and then from this screen I'm going to come to the colour edit icon, which is this one here that looks like a reel of thread with 4 colours. So I'm going to choose that. Then I'm going to choose the bobbin here with the plus sign against it, which should choose the first step in this design. Now I know from stitching this design, because this was also a previous video where I made a tote bag, that this is one piece of applique, and then everything else that you can see around the edge is various stitch lines. So I'm just going to choose the plus icon, and it will bring up in the window up here the basting stitch, which is what you would normally stitch out onto your stabilizer. Then you would place your fabric, and then you would go to the next step, which would be to stitch it again using the same size stitch line. Okay, so this is what I want. I want the applique basting stitch, if you like. So from here now, I need to come to the bottom of the screen. So I'm going to have to move you down because I can't get all this in the camera. And then I'm going to come to this icon down here that's got a pair of scissors with like a dotted line above it, and it's in this colour palette. I'm going to select that, and then if I just move you back up again, you'll see it's added in this icon here with a different coloured bobbin and the scissors and the stitch line. So from there, I'm going to choose close. Now on the Brother website, the lady that was showing how to do this from here said that you go to sewing. She had an icon down here that said sewing. I don't have that, so I've just played around with this, and this is how I do it on my machine. So if you have sewing here, you choose sewing. If you have embroidery like I have, choose embroidery. So I'm going to select that, and then from here I'm going to save this file now that's got this added step in here into the memory. So I'm going to click memory, and I'm going to save it back onto the USB stick because I want to put the USB stick in my ScanNCut machine. So that's all saved now. So I can take the USB stick out of the machine, And now I'm going to go and insert it into the ScanNCut and show you the difference from how I showed you how to do this same thing last week, only that was done directly on the machine, on the ScanNCut machine, if that's not too confusing. So just give me a minute. So I'm just going to say it's okay to delete all that because I've saved it onto the USB stick. I'm going to pull the USB stick out. Okay, so I've got my ScanNCut on. I'm going to just get into the editing page. I'm going to plug the USB stick in the side of my machine. I'm going to go to retrieved data from the USB stick. So here on my USB stick now, I've got the original PES stitch file, but I've now got this PHC file, which I've just made directly on my V5LE. So I'm going to select that. Now, if you watched the video last week, you'll be familiar with this screen. So you've got the shield, which is supposed to find cut data. But last week, if you remember, there was no cut data created because the file hadn't been made using Brother software or a Brother machine. And we used this icon and we made the ScanNCut cut file from a stitch file. Now, if I choose this, there is my cut file, and that's the cut file that I've just made directly on my V5 sewing machine. So if I now say OK, the size has come in at 4.91 by 4.80, which it was in last week's video. If I come to this icon here now, the offset icon, while I'm still on this page, before I do anything else with it, I can now choose to add my 0.04 or whatever I want to add, 0.8. I'll leave it at 0.4 for now, and I'll say OK. So it's taken the size up to 5 by 4.87. And I can say set. 0.4 offset is 1 millimeter. If I want to make it 1.5 millimeter, like I did last week, and like I would normally do in Embrilliance Essentials, I can. I'm just going to go back to add. I'm going to retrieve this pattern again, say OK. I'm not going to go into offset this time. I'm just going to bring it on at this basting size and say set. And that's this one in the top left hand corner, which I'll bring down here. I can go into the icon where I can adjust the size, and I can take it up by 0.06, which is the equivalent of 1.5 millimeters here if I want to, like I did last week. So I can go and say OK. So doing it the first way, before you hit the set button, you can add an offset on, and you can put the offset based on the parameters of the ScanNCut machine. So by default, 0.04 comes up, which is 1 milli. So that's how you do it. So I'm going to get rid of that one anyway because I don't need it. So that's making a cut file from a file that I've made directly on the sewing machine. So for this now, I would say OK and save it into the machine, cut it, and then it's ready to use as applique. Okay, so I'm just going to hit the home button. So I'll just go over that again. So basically I've got the PHC file on the USB stick. I'm going to go to retrieve data from the stick, choose the PHC file, not the PES stitching file, choose the shield. That's already got my cut line in because the sewing machine has made that for me. Say OK, and then you can add your 1 milli or 2 milli offset here. Select offset, choose which offset you want, say OK, say set, and then you can save that into your machine and cut it. So now I'm just going to hit the home button and say OK to delete all patterns, and I'm just going to go back to the sewing machine and show you how to make it with an applique file that's got more than one applique step. I'm going to come to Embroidery Edit, USB stick, and I'm going to find another file. So I'll use the gnome that I made several weeks ago. So there's my gnome stitched applique file that's got no applique cut properties or anything assigned to it. All these steps here are all the stitching steps, and you would have to lay your fabric down manually, stitch over it, cut round it. I'm going to say set. I'm going to go to the colour edit icon. I'm going to click on this first step to bring the first step up, which is the little feet or boots. I'm going to come down to the bottom of the screen and choose the scissors with the cut lines above it, and that's added in that cutting data for me. So last time from here I went close and then onto the next step, but this has got more elements, more appliqué elements in it. I think there's 5 in total from memory. I think there's the boots, the heart, the beard, the nose and the hat. So there's 5 elements to this, and obviously you want to make an appliqué cut file for all 5 elements. So I'm not going to hit close, I'm going to hit the plus icon again, and in the window up here, so I'm hitting this icon, and in the window up here it shows you what it's going to move on to. Now I know that that's stitch data and I don't want that, so I'm going to hit the plus icon again, and that's brought me the next section of my appliqué. So with that selected, I'm going to come back down to the bottom and choose the scissors, and that's added in cut data. I'm going to hit the plus icon again. I know I don't need that, that's the tack down stitch, so I'm going to scroll on. I don't need that because it's a stitched element. I want the hat, so with the hat selected, I'm going to come back down here, choose the scissors, then I'm going to hit the plus icon again. That's going to show me the hat again, but that's the like tack down stitch after you've put your fabric, so I don't need it. I don't need the stitches. The nose is an appliqué, so again I'm going to come to the bottom and hit the stitch. That's put that in for me. I'm going to hit the plus icon, it's going to show me the nose again, but again that's like the tack down stitch, so I'm going to scroll on. That's the embroidery stitch. I want the heart, so I'm going to do the same with the heart in the window up here. I'm just going to come down to the bottom of my colour palette and choose the scissors. I'm going to hit the plus again. I don't need the tack down. I don't need the stitching. The hands are embroidery, so I can scroll through that. That's the left and right hand. The little heart on the end of his hat is embroidery, so I don't need that. And that I think is back to everything now. So I think I've got all the cut data that I need. So from here, I'm going to go close, because I think the boots were the first thing I did. So I'm going to go close. I'm going to say, I don't know if you saw that, but there was a close button here. So I hit close. I'm going to go embroidery, or yours may say sewing. I'm going to say memory and save it into the USB stick. Wait for it to finish saving. Then I'm going to take that out and put that in the ScanNCut. Okay. So I've got the USB stick in the side of my ScanNCut. I'm going to say retrieve data from the USB stick, and I'm looking for the PHC file of the gnome. So if I select that, again you've got these 2 icons. We've made cut data directly on the V5. So I'm going to choose the shield, and all the 5 elements for my appliqué are now here. So I'm going to choose the boots, say OK. For this particular one, I'll just add a 0.04, which is 1 millimetre. So I'm going to say offset, add 0.04, OK, and set. And that's put the boots on the top of my mat, which I just can't get hold of at the moment. I'm going to go add, go to the next section, say OK, offset, 0.04, OK, set. That's brought the beard on. Go add, go to the hat, OK, offset, 0.04, OK, set, and work my way through. So add. So there are all the 5 elements ready for me to cut now in whatever fabric I want to cut them in. Then I can send them. I still can't get hold of that one, so I'm going to go to edit. I want these arrows. Just going to scroll through to grab that and then use the directional arrows and just bring it down a bit. So they are all my elements now I can load my ScanNCut mat up with my fabric, with my heat and bond on the back, cut it. Again, I would save it, so I'm going to say OK, save. So you can save it wherever you want. You can save it back on the USB stick, so it's with all your other data that goes with it, or you can save it directly into your machine. It's entirely up to you. So that's an alternative way of making a ScanNCut file, but creating the file directly within your sewing machine. And as I say, mine has been created on the Innovus V5 LE. I believe it works with any of the brother machines that have the embroidery edit function and a colour screen. It has to have this ability here, embroidery edit, and it has to be one of these colour screens. Anyway, I hope you found that helpful. Please give the video a thumbs up. Don't forget to subscribe,